Poor single dad rescues billionaire woman on the brink of death. Her next move will break your heart and heal it too. The blood was everywhere. Paul knelt on the scorching asphalt of road, his trembling hands pressed against the chest of a woman he'd never seen before. Her expensive gold jewelry was scattered like broken dreams around her motionless body, and her beautiful Ankara wrapper was now stained crimson. "Please don't die, please don't die," he whispered, tears mixing with sweat as he pumped her chest. The crowd around them grew larger, phones recording, voices shouting, but no one else stepped forward to help. She had been walking when the Okada hit her, a reckless motorcycle taxi that sent her flying like a ragdoll before speeding away into Lagos traffic. Now Chief Emma Adeniran, one of Nigeria's most powerful businesswomen, lay dying in the arms of a man who sold pure water on the streets. But this story? It started 6 months earlier, in the darkness of a hospital room where everything Paul loved was slipping away. Before we start the story, subscribe to my channel, my sweet, sweet besties. 6 months earlier. "Papa, am I going to die?" 8-year-old Joy's voice was barely a whisper, her small body almost lost in the white hospital bed. The cancer had stolen her weight, her energy, even her beautiful curls, but her eyes still sparkled with the same intelligence that made her teachers call her Little Professor. Paul squeezed her tiny hand, fighting back tears. "No, my angel. You're going to get better and go back to school and become that doctor you always talk about." "Papa, you're lying," Joy said softly. "I heard the doctors talking. They said the medicine isn't working anymore." The words hit him like a physical blow. For 8 months, he had sold everything. Their small shop, his late wife's jewelry, even their television, to pay for treatments. He had slept on hospital floors, begged on streets, and worked 3 jobs just to keep hope alive. "Mama is waiting for me, isn't she?" Joy asked, her voice getting weaker. Paul nodded, no longer able to speak. His wife Adayezi had died giving birth to Joy, leaving him to raise their miracle child alone. For 8 beautiful years, Joy had been his sun, his moon, his reason for living. "Papa, promise me something," she whispered. "Anything, my love. When I go to heaven, don't stop helping people. Mama told me in my dreams that helping others is how we keep love alive in the world." Those were her last words. At 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday night, Paul Okoro's world ended. Before Joy got sick, Paul had owned a small electronics shop in Alaba Market. Not rich, but comfortable. He had dreams of expanding, maybe opening another shop in Computer Village. He had a savings account, a small car, and a future planned out. But cancer doesn't care about your plans. The treatments cost everything. First went the shop, sold to pay for her surgery. Then his savings disappeared into endless hospital bills. His car was sold for chemotherapy sessions that promised miracles but delivered only more pain. His small flat in Surulere was lost when he couldn't make rent after missing work to stay by Joy's bedside. Now, 3 months after burying his daughter, Paul lived in a single room in Mushin slums. No electricity, no running water, just 4 walls that echoed with memories of a little girl's laughter. Every morning, he walked to Computer Village with a cooler full of pure water sachets, selling them for 50 naira each to office workers and shoppers. On good days, he made 2,000 naira. On bad days, barely enough for one meal. But the worst part wasn't the poverty. It was the emptiness. Every evening, he would return to his room and stare at Joy's school bag still hanging on the wall. Her notebooks were still inside, filled with drawings of stick figures labeled Papa, Mama in heaven, and me when I become a doctor. Sometimes he would hold the bag and cry until no tears were left. "God, why did you take her?" he would whisper into the darkness. "She was just a baby. She never hurt anyone. Why couldn't you take me instead?" His neighbors in the slum, Mama Kemi, the food seller, Brother Tunde, the mechanic, Sister Mary, who sold vegetables, they all worried about him. They had watched this man, who once dressed in clean shirts and drove a car, slowly wither away into someone who barely spoke, barely ate, barely lived. "Paul, you must eat," Mama Kemi would say, forcing plates of rice into his hands. "The child is with God now," Brother Tunde would remind him. You cannot join her by killing yourself with grief. But nothing helped. Paul was drowning in sorrow, and every day pulled him deeper. It was a Thursday afternoon, and the heat was suffocating. Paul was selling water when he saw the sleek black SUV pull up. A woman stepped out, tall, elegant, wearing an expensive dress that probably cost more than he made in 3 months. Emma Adeniran was the CEO of Zenith Holdings, one of Nigeria's largest companies. At 28, she was known for her sharp business mind and sharper tongue. Newspapers called her the Iron Lady of Lagos business. What they didn't know was that behind her success lay a heart hardened by years of betrayal and loneliness. She was crossing the bridge when the Okada hit her. The motorcycle taxi came out of nowhere, speeding, weaving through traffic, the rider probably high on something. The impact sent her flying 15 feet before she crashed onto the asphalt with a sickening thud. The Okada didn't stop. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the screaming started. "Oh my God! Someone call ambulance! Blood day everywhere!" But nobody moved to help. They just stood there, filming with their phones, taking pictures for social media. Paul dropped his cooler of pure water and ran. "Move back! Give her space!" he shouted, kneeling beside her broken body. Chief Emma's eyes were open but unfocused. Blood poured from a gash on her head, and her left leg was twisted at an impossible angle. But she was breathing. "Madam, can you hear me?" Paul asked, pressing his shirt against the head wound to stop the bleeding. She tried to speak, but only blood came out. "Don't talk, save your strength," he said, then looked up at the crowd. "Where is the ambulance?" "They say traffic bad," someone shouted back. 20 minutes. That's how long it took for help to arrive. 20 minutes of Paul holding this stranger, keeping pressure on her wounds, whispering prayers and encouragement while she drifted in and out of consciousness. "Stay with me, madam. Your family needs you to stay." When the paramedics finally came, they were amazed she was still alive. "You saved her life," one of them told Paul as they loaded her into the ambulance. "Without your first aid, she would have bled to death." But Paul didn't feel like a hero. As he watched the ambulance disappear into traffic, all he could think about was another hospital, another person fighting for life. And this time, unlike with Joy, he had been able to help. Emma woke up 5 days later in a private room at Lagos University Teaching Hospital, the same hospital where Paul had lost his daughter. Her head was bandaged, her leg was in a cast, and machines beeped softly around her bed. "Welcome back to the land of the living," said Emeka Okafor, her surgeon. How am I alive?" she whispered. "A man saved you, stayed with you for 20 minutes, kept you from bleeding to death. When the paramedics arrived, he quietly disappeared." "What man? What was his name?" "Nobody knows. He was gone before we could get details." For the next week, as Emma recovered, she couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who had saved her. Her security team scoured CCTV footage from the area, interviewed witnesses, even offered a reward for information. Finally, they found him. "His name is Paul Okoro," her security chief reported. "Age 34, lives in Mushin, sells pure water for a living, used to own a shop until his daughter got sick." His daughter? Died 3 months ago. Cancer. He spent everything trying to save her, lost his business, his home, everything. Emma stared at the grainy CCTV photo of Paul kneeling beside her on the bridge. A man who had lost everything still stopped to save a stranger. "I want to meet him," she said. "Mom, maybe it would be better to send money and a thank you note." "I want to meet him," she repeated firmly. "This man saved my life when he had every reason to be bitter at the world. I need to understand why." The knock on Paul's door came at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. Through the cracked wooden door, he could see an expensive car parked outside and 2 men in suits standing in his narrow corridor. "Mr. Paul Okoro?" one of them asked. "Yes. What do you want?" "Chief Emma Adeniran would like to speak with you." Paul's heart raced. The woman from the bridge was here. But why? He opened the door to see her sitting in the back seat of the SUV, still in bandages, but dressed in a simple blouse and wrapper. When their eyes met, she smiled, the first genuine smile she'd managed since the accident. "Can we talk?" she asked. Paul looked around his tiny room, embarrassed by the poverty. One bed, one plastic chair, clothes hanging from nails in the wall, and Joy's school bag still hanging in the corner like a shrine. "The place is not fine for someone like you," he said quietly. "Mr. Paul, I've been lying in a hospital bed for a week thinking about you. Please, can I come in?" When she entered his room, Emma saw everything. The careful way his few possessions were arranged, the medical bills still stacked on the small table, and in the corner, a child's school bag that made her heart ache. "Your daughter?" she asked gently, pointing to the bag. Paul's voice broke. "Joy, she died 3 months ago. I'm so sorry." "Cancer," he continued, as if the word was poison in his mouth. "I tried everything, sold everything, but I couldn't save her." Emma felt tears in her eyes. "Yet you saved me, a complete stranger." "I couldn't save my own child," Paul whispered. "Maybe God let me save you to show me I'm not completely useless." "You're not useless. You're a hero. Heroes don't let their children die." The pain in his voice was so raw that Emma had to look away. She had come here to thank him, maybe give him money and leave. But seeing this broken man in his tiny room, surrounded by the ghosts of his lost family, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Genuine compassion. "Paul, can I tell you something?" "Yes, Ma." "I'm 45 years old. I've built a company worth billions of naira. I have houses in Ikoyi, London and New York. I have everything money can buy." She paused, her voice softening. "But I don't have anyone who would miss me if I died. No husband, no children, no real friends, just employees and business partners." She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "This is 5 million naira. It's not payment for saving my life. You can't put a price on that. It's a gift from someone who finally understands what real wealth looks like." Paul stared at the envelope. 5 million naira, more money than he'd ever seen. Enough to start over, to maybe open another shop, to stop selling pure water in the scorching sun. But instead of taking it, he shook his head. "I can't accept this, Ma." "Why not?" "Because I didn't help you for money. I helped you because—" His voice broke again. "Because my daughter taught me that helping people is how we keep love alive in the world. Taking money for it would make her words meaningless." Emma stared at this man, this poor, broken, grieving man who was refusing 5 million naira because accepting it would compromise his principles. In that moment, she realized she wasn't just looking at the man who saved her life. She was looking at the man who could save her soul. "Then let me help you differently," Emma said after a long moment. "What do you mean?" "Come work for me, not as payment, but as partnership. I need someone I can trust, someone with integrity, someone who understands that real success isn't about money, it's about making a difference. Ma, I sell pure water. What do I know about big business? You know how to care about people. You know how to make impossible decisions under pressure. You saved my life with your hands and your heart. Those are skills I need in my company." Over the next hour, they talked like two people who had never really talked to anyone before. Emma told him about her loneliness, how success had cost her every meaningful relationship, how she worked 16-hour days because going home to an empty mansion was too painful. Paul told her about joy, not just about her sickness and death, but about her life. How she used to wake him up with kisses on his cheek, how she would share her food with hungry children at school, how she dreamed of becoming a doctor to help people like her mama. "She sounds like an angel," Emma said softly. She was. And losing her, it broke something inside me that I don't think can be fixed. "Maybe it doesn't need to be fixed," Emma said. "Maybe it just needs to be honored. Maybe we can help other children in her memory." That night, after Emma left, Paul sat staring at Joy's school bag. For the first time since her death, he didn't cry. Instead, he felt something he'd forgotten existed. Hope. Not hope that his pain would go away, not hope that Joy would somehow come back, but hope that maybe, just maybe, her short life had meaning. Hope that maybe God hadn't abandoned him after all. 3 months later, Paul stood in the lobby of Zenith Holdings wearing his first suit in over a year. The nameplate on his new office door read, "Paul Okoro, Director of Community Outreach." But more than the job, more than the salary that seemed like a fortune compared to selling pure water, What mattered was the work itself. He was helping establish the Joy Foundation, a program to provide free medical care for children with cancer. The first clinic will open next month, Emma told him as they reviewed construction plans. We'll be able to help 50 children initially. 50 children who won't have to go through what Joy went through, Paul said, his voice thick with emotion. 50 families who won't have to choose between keeping their homes and saving their children. Working together had transformed both of them. Emma had cut her work hours, started spending evenings helping with the foundation instead of sitting alone in her mansion. Paul had found purpose beyond his grief. Not to forget Joy, but to honor her memory by helping other children. One evening, as they worked late in the foundation office, Emma asked the question that had been building between them for weeks. "Paul, do you think it's possible for two broken people to heal each other?" He looked up from the medical equipment catalogs he was reviewing. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what I feel when I'm with you. It's not just gratitude anymore. It's not just professional partnership. It's something I haven't felt in 20 years. Paul set down his papers. "Emma, I need you to know something. Since Adeyes died giving birth to Joy, I never thought I could love anyone again. And after losing Joy, I thought my heart was dead. But when I'm with you, when I see how you care about these children, how you've changed your entire life to honor my daughter's memory, I feel like maybe there's still life in this old heart." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their confession hanging between them. "I'm scared," Emma whispered. "Me too, but maybe scared is okay. Maybe scared means it matters." 1 year later, on a beautiful Saturday morning, Paul stood in the garden of the first Joy Foundation clinic, adjusting his traditional agbada while trying to calm his nerves. Today was his wedding day, and beside the altar sat a framed photograph of a smiling 8-year-old girl, Joy, watching over the ceremony. The wedding was small but meaningful. Children from the clinic served as flower girls and boys, their bald heads from chemotherapy covered with colorful head wraps. Former patients who had been healed sat in the front rows with their families. Mama Kemi from the slum had traveled to Lagos to see her boy get married, tears streaming down her face. As traditional drums played, Emma walked down the aisle in a stunning gold wrapper. But halfway there, she stopped. She picked up Joy's photograph from the altar and carried it with her for the rest of the walk. "Your daughter should be here for this," she whispered to Paul when she reached him. Their vows were simple but profound. Paul spoke about finding love in the darkness of grief, about learning that healing didn't mean forgetting, but honoring those we've lost by continuing to love. Emma talked about discovering that true wealth wasn't measured in naira or dollars, but in the lives you touch and the love you share. When they exchanged rings, they also exchanged promises to continue Joy's legacy, to never stop helping children, to never stop believing in the power of compassion. As the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, a child from the cancer ward shouted, "Uncle Paul, Auntie Emma, can we eat cake now?" Everyone laughed, including the bride and groom. Life, despite all its pain and loss, was still beautiful. 2 years later, the Joy Foundation had grown to 5 clinics across Nigeria. Hundreds of children had been treated, dozens of lives saved. The foundation's motto, painted on every clinic wall, came from an 8-year-old girl's final words. "Helping others is how we keep love alive in the world." On the 2nd anniversary of Joy's death, Paul and Emma stood at her graveside with flowers and a photo of all the children who were alive because of her legacy. "Look, my angel," Paul whispered to the headstone. "Look how many lives your love has touched." As they prepared to leave the cemetery, a little girl from the clinic ran up to them. Her name was Faith, and like Joy, she was 8 years old and battling cancer. Unlike Joy, she had caught it early. Unlike Joy's father, her parents didn't have to choose between saving their home and saving their child. "Uncle Paul, Auntie Emma," Faith called out, her bright smile lighting up the evening. "The doctor says my treatment is working. I'm going to be okay." Paul knelt down and hugged her tight, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, my dear, you're going to be just fine." That night, as they sat on their balcony looking out at the lights of Lagos, Emma asked, "Do you think she knows? Do you think Joy knows what her life has meant?" "I think she's been watching over us from the beginning," Paul replied. "I think she sent you to that bridge that day. I think she knew I needed saving just as much as you did. From what? From drowning in my own sorrow, from forgetting that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just finds new ways to grow. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of Lagos. Children playing, families laughing, life continuing in all its messy, beautiful complexity. The story that began with a little girl's death had become a testament to how love multiplies when shared, how healing comes through helping others, and how sometimes the greatest tragedies can become the seeds of the most beautiful transformations. Somewhere in heaven, an 8-year-old angel smiled, knowing that her papa had finally learned her most important lesson. Helping others is how we keep love alive in the world. And in Lagos, in clinics bearing her name, dozens of children were living, laughing, and dreaming of becoming doctors, just like she once did. My sweet besties, your story matters too. Paul thought his world had ended, but his greatest pain became his greatest purpose. What about you? What difficult experience actually made you stronger? If you could start a foundation like Paul and Emma, what cause would be closest to your heart? Share your story below. Someone needs to hear exactly what you've been through. Your pain could be someone else's lifeline today. Because every broken heart can learn to love again.